We're live. Nice to see everybody again. Okay, I'm right here. Hey everybody, it's me once again, Andreas, your garden coordinator here at the Maryland Magrum Center Wellness Garden. So we have a bit of a change of plans today, unfortunately. We were going to talk about fertilizing fruit trees today, but to our dismay, we've discovered that the fruit tree fertilizer we have here is not organic, so we will not be using it. And I'm going to have to look into organic options for fertilizing fruit trees, and then we will circle back and do that next week instead. So today we're going to be talking about what was supposed to be next week's topic, which is compost tea made with worm castings. And we will also be talking a bit about square foot gardening, because it is our time to begin sowing our seeds for spring. And I'm really excited about that. We're going to be using lots of square foot gardening this year here in the Maryland Magrum Center Wellness Garden. We'll get more into that and talk about what that is and its benefits later in the live stream. But for now, we are going to talk about starting a compost tea. So you may be asking, what is compost tea? Why is it so great? You may have heard of compost, and compost is a material that you make by essentially facilitating the decomposition of any kind of organic waste materials, whether that be trimmings from your garden, veggies you didn't eat, kitchen scraps, leaves, whatever. Composting is a great thing to do to reduce your household waste and also create a wonderful material to add to your garden soil. People oftentimes think of compost as a fertilizer, and while it does contain nutrients, it is true that you can kind of use it as a fertilizer. One of the more overlooked aspects of compost is that it is teeming with an abundance of microbes and fungi and other small organisms that are essential for your soil in organic cultivation systems. So what we're really doing as well when we apply compost is we are increasing the diversity of soil organisms, and these soil organisms are responsible for supporting plants in a variety of different ways. They may facilitate the breakdown of organic matter to return nutrients to the soil. They may help plants absorb nutrients directly, and they also might protect plants from pests and diseases. So having what we call a healthy soil food web, that is a diverse community of these soil organisms within our soil, will increase the productivity of our garden and its resilience in the face of pests, diseases, and adverse environmental conditions such as hot weather, cold weather, and wind. So compost tea is basically a material, a liquid that we make using compost, where we actually grow out these organisms. We culture them inside water to create a brew that is very rich in microbes and some fungi that we can then apply to our soil and apply to the leaves of our plants to protect them from certain pests and diseases. So it's a fantastic material to use, especially if you are working with really dead native soil or fresh soil or soil that has been neglected for a while, that hasn't that hasn't really had lots of plants in it or has sort of degraded in quality. So compost tea is a great way to introduce or reintroduce all this beneficial biology to your soil. And so we're going to be showing you how to make it today. It's a very simple process, very easy to use, and usually the benefits of compost tea are most noticeable the first time you use it in your garden, with lesser benefits as you continue to use it. There's a sort of law of diminishing returns here from my experience and from what I have read and studied about it. So I did want to say that a lot of the science regarding compost tea is very new. Some of it is not settled. So keep that in mind. Your mileage may vary when using this stuff, but I have found it to be very beneficial and helpful in my garden, especially at home when I'm working with my native soil that didn't really have much life in it. It was really applying compost tea that helped me bring the life back into my soil. And it's a wonderful way to do that. So let's get started. We're going to be making our compost tea out of worm castings, since the compost we have here is not quite finished yet. You always want to use finished compost when you're making compost tea. I have heard varying things with regards to how much worm castings or compost you should use. I don't really think you need a lot personally. Some people say use up to 4 cups of this stuff. I think that just a small handful is fine, because what you're really doing, again, is multiplying the biology, and there's a ton of biology in a very small amount of compost, so you shouldn't really need to add that much, in my personal opinion. So let's get the worm castings then. You want to say anything, Brianna, about compost tea? Have you used compost tea?
I haven't used it in my own personal garden. I've used worm castings, but the reason why I haven't used compost tea necessarily is because I don't have the supplies, but I will be buying it. So like, for example, this, what is this called? An air
stone.
An air stone. I don't have this, but you can buy this at
a hydroponic store or aquarium store. This one I got from a local hydroponic store. And you can get these pumps from a local hydroponic store as well, or even just like a pet store, like, you know, whatever local pet supply chain that you have will carry what you need, and also just a bucket from a hardware store. Some people like to use one of these to brew it. This is a paint strainer that you can get at any hardware store. You basically just put the worm castings in there, or the compost in there. I'll demonstrate with this. I normally don't use these. I don't think it's necessary, really, but...
How much would you say is the pump and the stone?
This will probably be about $30, and this might be about $5. And then you can get the airline tubing as well. You can get cheaper pumps, too. I just prefer to use, like, a higher quality pump. You know, that's my personal preference. This one actually might be a bit more expensive. Yeah, I think this one is a bit more expensive. This one might be $60. This is a nice pump. But you don't have to have an ultra fancy pump for this. It's not really necessary. Yeah, so what we're going to do is we'll use the paint strainer this time just for demonstration purposes. You can try using a paint strainer for it. You don't have to. It's just kind of up to you. But what I like to do is I have these holes that I made in there, and I'll just place the air stone in there. Make sure that it's lying flat. I really like the ring-shaped air stones, because if you center it in the middle of your bucket, it'll create a really nice stream of bubbles that, like a pretty large ring of bubbles in the bottom. That'll mix the water fairly evenly. I think it's better to use an air stone like that than one of those really tiny ones, honestly. You want to get a decent volume of air running through your bucket. So what we'll do next is I'll try and get this around here. This is why I don't like using these. They're kind of a pain to get on, but that's okay. And I brew compost tea and use it all the time. I'm a huge fan of it.
Yes.
And you can brew it from store-bought compost, but the general rule with compost tea is the higher quality compost you use, the better, and make sure you're using good compost, because good compost is going to have lots and lots of good biology. We want to maximize the biodiversity here and make sure that we're also not culturing out and multiplying pests and pathogens, because whatever bacteria and certain kinds of fungi in your compost, you're multiplying those out. That's what you're doing. So you want to make sure that you have a high quality material that doesn't contain pests or pathogens or anything really harmful. And worm castings are always a pretty surefire bet. Worm composting is very easy to do. Very low maintenance. You can even do it indoors, and you can see all these worms in here.
Wigglers.
These red wiggler worms.
I haven't looked at them in a while. I need to bring them.
They're doing well. We need to bring them some more food for sure, because they're not really producing as much as we need to do this. But again, as I said, I'm of the opinion that you really don't need a large amount of castings or compost to do this. Just based on my knowledge of biology. So let's see now. Is there some on the bottom? Yep, there's some. So we'll just use this material.
Woo! That's beautiful.
The one thing that you should do to make sure it's good is smell it. Smells good. So believe it or not, the human nose is really good at distinguishing bad bacteria from good bacteria. And bad microbes from good microbes.
And the worms won't die in there? I don't know why. I always think they're going to die.
I've seen them survive this, but I'm going to take them out as much as I can and put them back into the worm farm. And then we'll just use the casting. These guys are... I almost feel like we should sift this out, because they want to stay, so...
Oh, we forgot. Okay.
So we'll
Two little guys.
Not much luck here. Here's some. Yeah, as I said, you really don't need that much in my opinion. I would say like
There's
a good
probably
handful.
some at the bottom of that one.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid using the stuff on the bottom because we still have like eggshells in here and whatnot. Definitely a little bit of a salmonella risk, but not that big of a deal in my experience. Like right here, this stuff looks pretty good. There's some plastic. I have no clue how that got in here. Probably from the paper. Lots of people like to use shredded paper in their worm farm. I don't think it's necessary. You could just use leaves as your browns. I use fallen leaves in my worm farm all the time. Like, people love to overcomplicate vermicomposting. It's like, oh, you need to get this fancy material for your bedding, and you need to put all this shredded paper there. It's like, no, you don't. You don't need to do that at all. What I use as bedding for my worm farm is just compost for my compost pile that is, like, not quite finished yet. Because there's already worms living in there. They found their way in there on their own. And then all you have to do is just put it in the bottom of your worm farm when you're starting it. It's really, you know, this is a very simple process. You don't have to do this and do that and buy this product and that product. You know, all you need is some compost and some worms to get started, and whatever green and brown waste material you have laying around. And yes, it is good to shred it up. You don't have to. You'll get better results that way, but you should. Also, this right here is a worm egg sac.
Oh.
Let's leave those in there. So I'm gonna get a little bit more. But you know, in general, you know, as I've learned more and more about gardening, I've found that it's a lot simpler than people make it out to be. And
Just let them do their thing.
Just let, you know, nature do what it wants to do, and just create the conditions for a healthy garden by maintaining healthy soil. It's as simple as that in my experience. And of course, there are millions of gardening techniques out there. You can use all kinds of products and stuff if you want. It's like, yeah, if you want to do that, go right ahead. But I've found that, you know, you can do it very simply, and there's no need for, like, you know, all kinds of like, you know, crazy techniques and
Gadgets.
complicated products and gadgets. Like, I have my gadgets that I like, and we'll talk about gadgets when we do a follow-up video on the worm and compost tea and like how to apply it, and how to use it. We're just gonna go over how to make it today, as it is a process that takes some time. You have to let it actually brew. You can't use it right away, so that's fine, obviously. So I'm just gonna use that much. And again, people say use this many cups or that many cups, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
But, you know, look online, do your research, find out what has worked for different people in different situations, and go from there. This is just what I have found works. Not an exact science. And all right, so we have our castings. What we're gonna do next is we are going to get some water and fill up the bucket with water. Very important. You see this thing? That's a hose filter. You do not want to use chlorinated water for worm or compost tea, because what does chlorine do to the microbes that you want to grow? It's certainly not good for them. So we want to use dechlorinated water. If you can use a hose filter like this. I love hose filters. I think that, you know, it's a very convenient way to get some fresh dechlorinated water for your compost tea, for your aquaponics. I even prefer to water my garden with dechlorinated water, honestly. But you can also treat the water with vitamin C, believe it or not, to dechlorinate it at a rate of 1 teaspoon per 100 gallons. And I have used that method too. It works just fine. Yeah, so we have...
Do those last a long time?
Water.
The
What's
filters?
that? The filters?
Yeah, how long do they last?
Like probably 6 months to a year, depending on how much water you use. They're not rated for drinking water. They do remove heavy metals, they do remove chlorine, but it's not rated for drinking water. So I wouldn't really drink out of it, you know, just like how you wouldn't drink out of a hose. And like, keep in mind, you know, even though there's a filter, this still is a brass fitting that still has lead in it. Don't drink the water. So we're just gonna fill it up. I'm gonna let it fill up slowly. Now let's talk about what we're going to do in terms of the pump. So all you have to do is plug that in. You're good to go.
Should I maybe check to see if I put the hose on good
The hose?
on the pump?
The hose is on.
Because I tried squeezing it on
Yeah, I
there.
did not have the right fitting size for this, so I had to kind of like force it on and sort of brie on it earlier because it came off after I did it initially. But we'll just put the pump in a nice dry, flat place. This right here is the air intake, so make sure that that is open to the atmosphere. And then the pump is running.
Oh yeah, you can see the bubbles.
Yep, you can see those bubbles. And see, that's another reason why I don't like to use the paint strainers, because in my opinion, it interferes with the water flow. But the benefit of using the paint strainer is that you're going to end up with a product that doesn't have as many of these solid materials in it from the worm castings. And if you're like using some kind of sprayer or a device that can clog to apply it, then that's definitely, you know, beneficial. But
Should I turn it
it's
off?
not necessary. It's okay, I have a valve here.
Oh, okay.
And there's a little wormy floating around. So that's good. And you can see the bubbles coming up. Yeah, in my opinion, it interferes with the water flow, but that's okay. So let's talk about the foods that we're going to use for this stuff. We have unsulfured blackstrap molasses. Always use the unsulfured blackstrap molasses. And this feeds the microbes. So this is a microbe food. And I will say there is some debate on, like, you know, how much fungi you can grow in compost tea. Some people are like, you know, yes, you can grow these fungi and all the fungi you find in your compost, you know. I think biologically speaking that doesn't make a lot of sense, because some fungi will form like these long strands called mycelium, and those generally require like a very still environment to grow. But when it comes to stuff like naturally occurring yeasts that are also beneficial to your soil, I would think that those would be able to survive in this kind of environment. And people say that something like fish and seaweed fertilizer is good for the fungi, and also SP90 humic acid. This is a water-soluble humic acid that is made from coal. You can actually, humic acid is actually produced naturally in soil. So this is just kind of like a concentrated form, and it's a pretty stable substance. That's why it's been able to survive in coal for millions of years. It's sort of like the basis of like the storage of carbon in your soil. It's one of the forms carbon is stored in the soil. So in terms of dosing, I like to use a tablespoon. So I'm going to put in the humic acid first, because this stuff sticks to water a whole lot. It's very attracted to water. It's very hydrophilic.
It's very fine.
Very fine and very messy. And if you get this on your hands, it's a bit of effort to come off. See, now that's going to be difficult to take off, but that's okay. It comes off. It doesn't like stain or anything. But yeah, as you can see, it really takes a little bit of effort to get it to dissolve. It loves to clump together, but once it gets into the water, it's you know, it dissolves. Oh, hello worm. Hello worms. You must have found your way in there. Let's put you back. Yeah, and again, I don't think that the paint strainer is necessary, especially when you're using a smaller amount. I left this in here. But yeah, as you can see, it's starting to break down and dissolve a little bit. And I wanted to apply this stuff because it's dry. The other materials that we're going to be using are liquid. And there are various recipes for this tea, for these kinds of teas, that include all sorts of ingredients. So you can research these recipes online and see what people have used them for. This brew is just going to be really good for like soil that you're using to grow vegetables.
Yeah.
Because you kind of want like from what I've read and researched, you kind of want like a balanced fungal to bacterial ratio for vegetables. And if you want to make something more fungal, then you know that's for fruit trees more and nut trees. And if you want, brews that are highly bacterial are better for really weedy plants. So yeah, I can see it's just like sticking to my hands, and it's just.
I'm sure the recipes, it depends on like what you're going to be growing in your garden.
Yeah, that's what people have been trying to do, and again, like the science behind this is really new. And you know, there are a lot of folks who just experiment with this and then say, I've gotten this result from this recipe, I found that this recipe is good for that, and then like it's kind of loosely based upon what we know and understand. from the soil science world and a lot of the new information coming out from that realm. And there's tons of new information in soil science and soil microbiology. We're constantly learning about new things, and like it's such a crazy world down beneath your feet. And we probably know less about all the organisms found in a teaspoon of soil than we do about the bottom of the oceans. So
Wow, I know. I used to look at soil like, okay, you know, I know it has a little bit of nitrogen, a little bit of phosphorus, and clay and stuff, but I didn't know about the biology as much as you have taught me. It's crazy.
As I've been, reading and researching, I'm seeing more and more that it's really the biology that makes soil soil. Soil is not just like, a medium for growth that contains nutrients. It's a living system. And the availability of nutrients to the plants in like a healthy soil is actually really made possible by the organisms that live in the soil. Not by whatever fertilizers you want to apply. And then yes, applying fertilizers can be good for your garden, absolutely. But you don't fertilize a forest in nature or whatever in the wilderness. The fertilizer.
That's true.
And
those jungles that have a bunch of stuff.
The nutrients are recycled, and it's these organisms that recycle the nutrients. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit when we do our square foot gardening and plant the beans, because it is time to start planting your beans, or it's getting to be that time depending on where you live. And we'll talk about nitrogen fixation and why you want to grow legumes in your garden. We have discussed that before on the live stream, but that's a topic I feel that should be covered frequently so that new viewers have the opportunity to learn about it if they're not aware. Because there really is a lot to do to gardening and soil. There's a lot of details you can get into, and many different ways to manage the soil to encourage the biology. And this is one of them. So,
yes, we're gonna show our update of our peas eventually.
Yep. So then we got everything in here. This brew is now complete. I'm gonna cover these comfrey roots. We're gonna be planting comfrey later if we have time. So this brew is now done. What I would do is put it in a spot with stable temperatures. You want to do this outside. You want to brew your compost and worm tea outside so that the strains of microbes that you are cultivating are adapted to your outdoor environment. That's very important. But you also want to make sure that it's covered because these microbes and fungi are sensitive to light. So what we're going to do is we are going to cover this up with a lid and just leave it here. And typically the process takes 24 to 48 hours to complete from here. Depending on the temperature, that's the major factor. So right now it's pretty warm, so this brew will probably be usable tomorrow. I might decide to come back here tomorrow and put it to use. You don't want to let it go for too long because then the microbes consume all of the nutrients and then it goes bad. We'll have a completed batch ready during a future live stream, and we'll demonstrate how to apply this material to your garden. It's a wonderful thing to use. I will talk briefly about a couple of the uses as we're cleaning up and moving on here. One thing that I have found it to be very useful for, or that I've been experimenting with rather, is inoculating seeds. So getting all of those microbes that you just cultivated in your worm tea onto seeds that you're going to plant. So that as the seeds germinate, all of those microbes are going to be waking up with the seed and colonizing your baby plant. Because again, these microbes are very beneficial. They serve many functions, and a lot of it has to do with, again, getting nutrients to the plants, protecting the plants from pests and diseases, and also helping the plants, better withstand drought conditions and heat and cold and wind and all that good stuff. Okay.
I'm gonna show the peas. I'm so...
Yeah, go talk about the peas while I get set up.
Okay, look at how beautiful these purple peas are. Here, let me see if there's one I can eat. Okay, this one probably is ready. Oh, broke it. Look at how beautiful that is. And it actually has a stain, like a dye that kind of stains, but they're delicious and they're doing super well. And eventually, once we're done with the peas, we're gonna be growing turmeric, so that's exciting. But we have so many flowers, so all of these flowers are gonna be turning into peas, and yeah, so exciting. We also, our chamomile is growing really nicely. This was grown from seed. And then we have some cilantro here. And this is kind of like a little bit of a chaos garden, but there's a mixture of carrots and radishes. So you can kind of tell the carrots have like a thinner leaf, and the radishes have a much bigger leaf. Are we gonna be harvesting the radishes?
Not now.
Okay.
Oh yes, we will be.
And this is the hydroponic system. These are all radishes. Look at how many weeks ago did you? This is a growth from like 2 weeks.
About a month.
Oh, a month. Yeah.
They got huge.
Mm-hmm.
I need to recount these now. Oh no, you can keep going.
Even the lettuce, but I remember this was from last week's live or the week before. When you grew the lettuce?
Like 2 weeks
Or
ago.
planted the lettuce? And look at it now. So much has grown already. These are some more peas that we have. Yeah, like Andreas has been talking about, peas fix nitrogen in the soil, which is very, very important to have. It helps with the rest of the plants that you plant around it. So these are our carrots. They're still kind of small. Did you take out? We had other stuff growing in here, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the lettuces. We had lettuce and arugula growing, but
I need to wash
it was
these
time
guys
to
off
harvest
really
it.
quick, so keep going.
Okay. I'm just giving a quick tour. Oh my goodness. One thing that we're super excited about is the lemon trees. So there's so many flowers. See all of the white flowers? And there's tons of bees here, so we know that they're pollinating all of these flowers, and we're gonna have a ton of lemons. A few weeks ago we did a live where we were showing how to prune the trees, so that was perfect because you can see the result of pruning. There's like new growth everywhere. So yeah, super excited to see all of the limes and lemons growing. Okay, I think I finished. I showed the flowers on the lemon tree
Awesome.
because that's super exciting.
So I actually don't remember how many beans you're supposed to do per square foot garden. So let me check that really quick. Why do
Okay.
you keep showing them around the garden and talking about what you want to talk about while I figure that out?
Okay. Well, there's a lot of plans we have for the garden, so I guess I'll talk about that. So this is one of our larger beds here, and right now we have the cover crops, but what we're going to be planting is on the edges. So on the edges of both sides we're going to be planting yellow squash and summer squash or zucchini, and then on the edges we're going to be growing a pumpkin on one side, and on the other side a cypress, I think that's how you call it, cypress squash. And what else are we growing with the squashes? Oh, okra. We're gonna be having okra. So normally with the three sisters you do like a corn, a squash, and corn, squash, and what is the other part of the three sisters?
Amaranth? Oh no,
No.
corn, squash, and pole beans. Is the
And pole
traditional Three
beans.
Sisters.
But we're doing
Yeah,
a
we'll be doing a
modified.
modified one here. But
Yes.
yeah, the cover crop is doing fantastic.
Yes, and we have more cover crops here. I'm just kind of explaining like what is gonna be. We're kind of like in a preparation season, so
Okay.
I'm just explaining like what the summer squash and the pumpkin that's growing over there, and then
Awesome.
it was the okra or amaranth.
Amaranth, yeah.
Amaranth.
Yeah, we're not going to be doing corn. The problem with corn is that corn is wind pollinated. So if you have a bed that isn't very large like this isn't even that large for corn. What I've read is that you want at least 8 feet by 8 feet square for corn in order to ensure proper pollination. So you're not going to really get good yields out of corn in this kind of space. But the thing about corn is that it grows really tall, really fast. And so we can replace it with something else in the Three Sisters garden that grows really tall, really fast. So the idea there is use okra, and use amaranth, which are broadleaf plants like corn, but they're not wind pollinated. They're pollinated by pollinators, as far as I know. I know okra is for sure. I'm not sure about amaranth, but they should do fine instead. Yeah, I'm ready. So it is 9 plants per square foot.
Okay.
So we'll get to that. We'll talk about square foot gardening and succession planting. I just washed these bean seeds off really quick because I dropped them on the floor and they got all dirty. I dropped them on the floor the other night at my house. This variety is Provider, and I think that Provider, I've read that it can do better in cold conditions, I believe. I think this variety, so I think it would be a good place to start since it's not quite spring yet, and while conditions are warm, we could still get some cold weather that could set
Yeah, it's
very
supposed to
tender
rain
plants.
more
back.
next week.
That's a good thing. We want rain.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these seeds are all nice and wet, and what I have here is an inoculant. Beans and peas, plants in that family, are very special. So what they're able to do is they're able to partner with these bacteria that live on the roots to actually fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. So these bacteria are capable of taking nitrogen gas and turning it into a form that plants can use, and then they exchange that nitrogen that's available to the plants for sugars from the plant, for sugars and for amino acids and other nutrients. And so it's sort of like, a mutually beneficial arrangement. However, contrary to popular belief, these bacteria are not always in your soil, and you might have to add them. So this is what this is. This is these bacteria in a preserved state. I believe they're being stored on charcoal, and so the charcoal contains their spores. And so what we're going to do is just add a little pinch to ensure that we get the nitrogen fixation, just the tiniest pinch, and you just kind of want to like evenly coat the seeds with them. Like this packet's enough to treat like 50 pounds of seeds or something crazy like that.
Oh,
or even
wow.
more, yeah. You really don't need a lot. I'm putting like 2 pinches in here. And you want to keep this stuff stored in a cool, dry place. So we're going to put it back in the shed immediately now that we're done using it, because we don't want to damage the bacterial spores.
We're going to be planting that here, right?
Yep, and we'll be planting it right here in one of our square foot garden beds. So you may ask, what is a square foot garden? 1 second.
It's a method.
I remembered we have a seed dibber, so
Whoa.
yeah, we were going to use a seed dibber, but I'm not going to spend time on the live stream figuring out how to use this, but you can use one of these. This is for to make planting of seeds easier. What we can use it for is for drilling holes, because it has a measuring stick on it. So I think we want to plant beans about an inch and a half deep. So that's what we're going to do.
Oh, that's cool. I've always used just my finger.
Yeah, I think that's what this part is. It's just to plant. Oh, I see how this works. Okay, that's actually really cool.
What
But
is
I think
that
it's too. This is for actually dispensing the seeds, but I think it's too big for beans. Or I mean too small. Sorry. So let's talk about square foot gardening. What is square foot gardening? Square foot gardening is a fantastic way to organize your garden space. So what you do is you take your garden bed and you divide it up into square foot sections, right? And we've used string here. And then per square foot subplot within your garden, for each vegetable variety, there's a certain number of plants you can put per square. So for beans, it's 9 plants per square for bush beans. Because there are 2 types of beans. There are bush beans, they make like a bush, and then there are pole beans, which make a vine. So these are the bush beans. We'll do 9 of them at 1 inch depth. Let's see how much we're in.
There's a question.
Yes?
Where do you purchase your seeds / plants to grow from?
I have some vendors that I like. I'm not sure if I'm able to endorse
Yeah.
anything, but
Or what do you? Maybe you can say
but
instead.
I can tell you
what to
about
typically
things that
look
I
for.
look for when looking at a seed company.
Yeah.
One thing that I like to look for is a good selection. If a company has a good selection of seeds, then they're probably a very good and reputable seed vendor.
So a lot of variety.
A lot of variety. I like to look at a company that sells off of its own website, because a lot of vendors that might sell off of Amazon are not exactly trustworthy or reputable. And also, I will look at like how much information they have on their website about the seeds themselves, like, you know, because a lot of seed vendors should have certain kinds of information about their seeds, like planting depth, germination temperature, you know, when you should plant, how the description of the variety, all that kind of stuff. So like if you're looking at a good website that has a lot of good information, then it's probably a good seed vendor. And also look online for reviews as well. And there are a couple companies that I do like to buy from, and I'm sure you will find some as well. I'm just going to be uprooting these real quick. This spot is reserved for flowers, so we'll do the beans right here. So we'll do 1 inch.
Flowers are very important to have in your garden. Brings pollinators.
That's too deep. It's kind of hard for me to get up close. I need to get closer for this.
That's so funny. I didn't even know they had tools like that.
Oh yeah, they have all kinds of tools. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's try to move this here. We'll do number 7. 7. Doesn't have to be exact. 8. 9. Okay. I think that's good. I'm going to put 2 per hole. Actually, I'll do 3. I'm going to do 3 per hole in case, because these seeds are a year old, and from my understanding, bean seeds do not keep that long. You can kind of see that they might be a bit gross. So we'll see if they actually come up, but I'm going to pick ones that look good. And we'll hope and pray that they come up.
Gardening is like, you never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, I stored these in my garage, so I'm not sure about how viable they are. A lot of seeds you want to store in the fridge to help extend their viability. These holes did not end up being deep enough for 3 bean seeds, so I'm going to make them a little bit deeper and press the bean seeds in a little bit further.
Does it matter how you position the bean inside, or you just throw it in there?
I just put it in there, you know, and then after they germinate, if we get more than one coming up per hole, we can just thin them out. It's not a big deal. I've definitely done that before, and it works.
Yes.
But yeah, it's pretty important, I've found, for beans that you inoculate them if you're growing in soil sometimes, depending on what kind of soil you have. If you have like a native soil, or like, you know, a soil that's very exhausted and has been, you know, and where stuff has been grown for many years, then definitely inoculate. And the inoculums are really cheap to get. And here's some extras, so we can just scatter them somewhere and see what happens. I like to do that, you know, let's scatter our seeds and see if they come up, you know. It's a fun little experiment.
It is. We have a bunch of peas growing everywhere randomly.
Oh yeah, experimentation and letting volunteers do their thing is one of the joys of gardening, in my opinion. Just like, you know, seeing all life come up wherever it pleases, letting nature do whatever it wants, and then working with it, you know, working with it to grow an abundance of food. We don't need to force these kinds of things oftentimes. Okay, fantastic. Those are all planted now.
All right.
And I'll just leave these here for now. So what we're actually going to do here is called succession planting. So we planted this square. We're going to wait 2 weeks, plant that square, then wait 2 weeks again and plant that square, and then keep going, and then harvest, and then harvest this one, and then 2 weeks later harvest that one, and then that's going to allow us to have a pretty much continuous supply of beans. Because what bush beans typically do is they'll produce for like a couple weeks, and then they'll stop producing, and then that's when you get rid of them and then replant. So that's what we'll be doing here. So really quick, I'm just going to water.
And we can save some of the beans, right? So that way we can use them to plant next time.
Absolutely. I am not sure if beans cross-pollinate readily. I'm not sure.
Huh.
So look into that if you want to save bean seeds. Just give them a little sprinkling, a little soak. One thing that I also like to do if you're growing with the wood chips is cover very, very lightly with wood chips. It helps to retain moisture. Give it a nice watering. And again, with dechlorinated water, that's what I prefer to use. And you're done. Now let's see, cover it up again. Let's cover that. Beans can get through a little bit of wood chips just fine. A lot of plants can't, but this will help conserve moisture because you know, as it gets warmer, that's going to become very important.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I am a big believer in wood chips and using wood chips for gardening.
Mulch is very important.
Mulching in general, but wood chips especially are fantastic. If you want a long-lived mulch, if you want something shorter-lived, use straw. Use shredded leaves, or just use the residues of your cover crops if you're growing cover crops. And yeah, so there we go. That's our first square foot plot for this garden. Officially, the first spring seeds pretty much that we've sown. I did like sow some old seeds, but this is the first official planting. So
exciting!
Here, very exciting. All right.
Yes. Oh, and we do have a filter. Someone asked if we have a filter on the hose to dechlorinate it.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
We can show that again over here. It's right here. And after this, we'll be planting comfrey and turmeric.
Here it is. Comfrey. Yes, it's about 145 right now.
All right, let's do the turmeric really quick then. We won't worry about the comfrey this last stream. So I've never grown turmeric, so I'm very excited. This is my first time.
I'm like so excited for this too. I'm gonna grow it at home.
I separated the tubers that I got from Amazon into low quality, medium quality, and high quality, and we're going to be doing the high quality ones. I was able to isolate 6 of them. So yeah, these are what they look like.
Woo!
You see that? That's a bud. That's going to bud out and become a part of the plant.
So maybe you can explain what turmeric is for those who don't know.
You want to look for these buds on it, right there. But turmeric is a small perennial tropical plant that is native to Southeast Asia and India. It is oftentimes used in cooking. It is used as a supplement. It's very yellow, so it can be used as a food dye, and it's an anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. You know, very healthy for you.
Yes.
And we're very interested in wellness here at the Wellness Garden. After all, you know, that is the name. And here at the Maryland Malgrim Center, we're concerned with promoting nutrition and wellness. And so we're interested in foods that are very good for you, like turmeric. And specifically right now, there's a pretty big interest in anti-inflammatory foods. So turmeric is one of those.
Yeah.
So from what I read, what you want to do is you want to get some small pots just like these. Fill them up with some kind of soil. We're just going to use like a seed starting mix right here. Then just plant them, and then when you're done planting them in the spring, leave them inside until they sprout and until it's warm enough, and then bring them outside and transplant them into the ground or into a larger pot. You can start them in a larger pot as well, but these are all going to get transplanted into this raised bed right here where Brianna's beautiful peas are. So we're going to start them in smaller pots first to save potting soil. So we're just using this stuff. It's just like a seed starting mix that we happen to have. It drains really well. Seed starting mixes are usually optimized for drainage. So we're going to fill these up about maybe a third to a half of the way full with this seed starting mix. Yeah, halfway. I think a little bit more is fine. I'm not really sure how much you're supposed to cover these, but you know, I'm learning here.
Do you have to use seed starting mix, or can you use other
just any
soil?
old potting soil. This is just what we happen to have right now, and I think it'll work out just fine. And I'm going to take these ones home and keep them in a nice warm spot until they begin to shoot out. And then by that time, it should be just about time to plant them in the raised bed. And they take 10 months to yield. And I was
wow.
hearing from this one YouTuber who was showing me how to do it, I guess, in one of his videos, that you really only get good yields the second you're into it with turmeric. So don't expect a lot of yield the first year, I guess. But your mileage may vary. I've never grown this. I don't know what I'm talking about. That's just what I think.
I don't even know what it looks like when it's growing. Like, it shoots out green.
It looks like a tiny little banana plant.
Okay.
It's in the same family as bananas.
But what you eat is the root.
What you eat is the root.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna...
I've seen turmeric. You can have it juiced. I've used turmeric for making things like golden milk, which is like, it has turmeric and curcumin. Okay.
We want the eyes like the little knobs facing up, I believe.
Okay.
Or is it to the side? I don't remember. To the side will be fine, I think. It'll, like, the plant knows what direction to grow based on gravity. So we'll try to the side. I think that'll be better because that way you don't have any eyes on the bottom. We got these from Amazon, so we'll see how we do. How these do. Yeah, you want to look again for those eyes and for those shoots that are coming out.
Did you add water or anything to it?
I have not added water yet. I've just kept them in warm water and let them soak up the water a little bit. I figured that would be helpful in stimulating their growth. So yeah, there we go. I'm going to grab the hose real quick and wet them in. And then we'll cover them up with soil and then wet them in again.
Okay.
Then take them inside for them to begin producing new shoots. And then hopefully in a couple weeks to a month, we'll be able to plant them. And turmeric plants get up to 3 feet tall. And they kind of grow up and they have leaves that look like banana leaves. Okay, I guess we'll have to reposition those then. That's totally fine.
It's like floating everywhere.
Floating, yeah. Because we ordered about 4 pounds of turmeric, and I've never seen a turmeric rhizome before. So I'm like, what if they're that big? And we only get like 5 or 6 of them, you know? And you know, and lo and behold, of course, they're small. And so we have all these rhizomes now. And I don't know what to do with them. We're only going to be able to put like 6 in the garden, so... but we'll see. You know, there's always abundance when you're growing food. You have a garden, and that's one of the beautiful things about it, so... You know, if you're good at gardening, you're probably also very good at sharing.
Yes. I'm so excited for the turmeric.
Yeah, the turmeric is really exciting. I'm so stoked for this. Because I'm gonna... It's probably a really good companion for fruit trees, actually, since it likes some shade. I was reading 4 to 5 hours of sun per day, I believe. So if you want to grow something underneath your fruit trees, which you should do, definitely do that, then turmeric might be a good option for you to consider. Especially fruit trees that require more water, like lemon trees and citrus trees. I think avocado trees don't like to have any companions. I think that's something to do with just how the way avocados are. But, you know, other subtropical and tropical fruit trees that need lots of water, probably good choices to grow turmeric under. I'm going to be growing mine at home. I'm going to be growing some at home as well, near my bananas and or my lemon tree.
Oh, you have a banana tree?
Yes, bananas are not trees.
Banana plants.
They are related to turmeric. They do not make any wood. They're kind of like lilies. They grow like that. They grow from bulbs, just like turmeric, or similar to turmeric. Rhizome is the appropriate term. I'm just going to top this.
Exciting. Well, while you're finishing that, I just wanted to say that the Marilyn Magrum Center, we have a lot of different virtual workshops that we offer, and one of them is actually our weight management workshop, and that is going to be I think it's 6 weeks total. So we had our first workshop last Friday, but you can still register for the rest of them. And I will be co-presenting for for the weight management workshop series. So it's every Friday at 1 o'clock. Just wanted to
Awesome.
share that. Okay, someone wants me to show them the garden. Frida flower.
Hello, Frida.
So we have carrots and radishes. And what kind of flowers were those again?
California poppies and nasturtiums.
California poppies, nasturtiums, peas. But this is the exciting part. Sorry, I'm just like so happy. So remember where we had rue? I was like, let me plant peas. Because I found a bag of peas and I don't know, part of me feels bad because I didn't like think much of it. I was like, let's see if this grows. And we have purple peas. We have green peas. It is just so beautiful here. And then we have, this is cilantro, it looks like, and spinach growing here at the bottom. So they like shade. So we used the peas as kind of like a trellis to provide some shade for that. Then we still have our wonderful sorrel that we like to donate to the CSUN Food Pantry. We also have a little bit of seeds here for the birds. Sunflowers are coming up. Then we have our wonderful trees, cover crops, because we're trying to fix the soil here before we plant for the spring. We have, okay. Wait, what?
Also the lemon tree.
Okay, yes. We have so many flowers on the lemon tree. So beautiful. We pruned it, so it's gonna do great next time it gives us lemons. Then we have more cover crops, but we're gonna do a modified Three Sisters here. So we're gonna have different types of squashes. We're gonna grow pumpkin, amaranth, okra. It's gonna be beautiful. We have our pollinator garden here. We're gonna get rid of this type of milkweed and try to plant the native milkweed better. So that way we don't mess with the butterflies' natural system. And then here we have more peas growing along the, oh my goodness, I forgot the name of it. We have more peas growing along the, what did you grow near the, I forgot the name.
Hold on a second. I'll be right there.
I forgot, oh my goodness.
Right here? Which one? The flower? This stuff?
The
moringa?
the moringa. Moringa. I was
Yeah,
showing
and
the
under
moringa.
here is the tansy leaf phacelia. This is a California native
Yes.
wildflower. It gets pretty big and it's really beautiful. Pollinators love it.
Mm-hmm. So I think I
It's going
explained.
to start flowering probably in a couple weeks. So very soon.
Yes, but we have big plans and big dreams for this garden.
Lots going to be going on.
Yes, here we're gonna grow ginger,
I
right?
think we might just put the ginger in the middle and then cut a lot of the lemongrass back.
Okay.
Because the lemongrass that was in the middle sort of died. So, and then ginger likes shade. So we'll
Yeah.
put ginger there.
And we have, look at the chamomile. It's beautiful. Frida actually planted this from seed and it's doing great. And we have cilantro growing, which is very exciting. We planted more seeds here. So it's very exciting. Then we have our regular herbs. I like to call this our Italian herb because we have thyme, oregano, we also have a sage, Mexican sage. We have our basil here, mint. Beautiful. And our lemon verbena, we cut it down. But yeah, this is gonna keep growing. And yeah, I think I gave the general tour. So thank
doing
you.
the comfrey right now. I'm
Okay.
going to put the comfrey underneath the fruit trees.
What is comfrey again?
Comfrey is like an herb. It's a perennial herb. And it has a really deep taproot, and it's good at pulling nutrients from way deep in the soil and bringing them
Okay.
to the surface so the fruit trees can better access them or whatever else you want to grow in your garden for you.
Okay.
That's what's been, claimed about comfrey, so we'll see how true it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think this concludes our live for today.
And Any last minute questions before we really before we terminate this live?
I don't see any, but I think everyone really enjoyed seeing that quick garden tour update.
Absolutely. It's just gonna get better from here.
Yep. Yes. We also have mint growing, so that's beautiful.
That mint over there has come back really well, but the other stuff is struggling. We may need to replant.
Yeah.
That's okay. I have lots of mint at home. I'll bring cuttings.
Alondra put in the comments the Ask a Master Gardener feature.
Yes,
so
that's right. We cannot forget that. It's very important. If you have further questions and would like an experienced gardener to get back to you, use the Ask a Master Gardener feature on the Maryland Management Center website, and we will get back to you. We will get back to you and answer your questions that you have about gardening.
Yes, thank you. And one last view. Let's look at the worms.
Yes.
Someone wanted to see the worms. Okay.
Worm farming is so easy.
So instead of paper shreds, we've been using dried leaves and stuff. But okay. They're mainly hidden here at the bottom. But here are the worms. They're doing great. We just used some of their castings for the worm tea, but yeah, I need to feed them because they need to produce more, and I haven't fed them in like a week, so I need to feed them. But yeah, anyways, there's more at the bottom. But yeah, these are our beautiful wrigglers. Okay, thank you everybody. We're gonna end it now. See you next week.
See you next week. Have a good one. We'll be talking about fertilizing fruit trees. Join us then at 1 p.m. on Thursday.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.